Welcome, everybody, to another episode of the Startup Junkies podcast. Thank you for tuning in from wherever you are and however you are tuning into us today. Thank you for joining us. I am Caleb, and I'm joined by my Startup Junkie co-hosts, Jeff Amarine and Victoria Dickerson. How's it going?
Going good.
Going great. Glad to be here.
Likewise. And we're excited to introduce a guest to our show, Sophia Rascoff. Sophia is the founder of Recon Food, an app that connects lovers of food in a social media-like platform. Sophia, how's it going?
I'm doing well. Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. Thank you for joining us. So tell us, what is Recon Food?
Recon Food is a vertical social media network for food. So just like you mentioned, the goal of the app is to be a welcome escape for lovers of food. Obviously, social media as an entire concept really has become very stressful as of late, whether it's due to the toxicity or the news or I guess bad news that you encounter on it. It's not really a fun place anymore. So the goal of this was just to really be a space where people could talk and bond and reconnect over a shared love of food, without having to be bombarded with everything else that comes with a platform like Instagram.
That's awesome. How did you come up with the idea, or how did it start?
The idea really came to us over COVID. Food was something that was very important to our family, especially during the quarantine time. We were trying new recipes together, cooking a lot more than we used to. So that was something that really brought our family together. And at the same time, it was something that we wanted to share with the world and share with friends. But at least in my opinion, or my feeling at the time, was that Instagram wasn't the right place to share that. I didn't feel like my food was Instagram worthy. Instagram is such a highlight reel, at least in my experience, where it's the best meal you've ever had, the best thing you've ever made, the best vacation you've ever taken, the best picture you've taken out of the hundreds that you choose from. And so it wasn't the right place to share. And food is such an inherently social thing. But again, if you end up posting your food on social media, on Instagram, like a lot of people do, and I think that's great. But at least to me, it felt like it wasn't the right place. It felt like it was crowding, that Instagram was for something else, not for that. And so that's sort of where the idea came from. Additionally, we were so excited for after COVID to be able to get out to restaurants again and explore and get those recommendations and support local businesses as everything started opening up. So I think food had a really interesting time during COVID, whether it be bringing people together by sharing recipes or, all of the food trends that went around on TikTok and Instagram at the time. And we really wanted to play off of that.
Talk a little bit about the demographics of who your audience is and how they're engaging.
So the demographic is really, what's the best way to put this? People who like food, who are not necessarily obsessed with it. And I think that's sort of an interesting distinction that's happened in the app, because it's not created for professional chefs or like food influencers and food bloggers. And the few that we do have, we welcome them. And obviously it's a community for everyone, but it's really built for the average person who enjoys cooking from time to time or likes food, but you don't have to be good at it, which I think is something that I really love about the app, because I try to cook stuff all the time and it never turns out exactly the way I pictured it in my head. Everything's always a little off. When I try to decorate something, everything always gets a little messed up or I run out of time. It's how cooking is. But that's kind of what I love about it, because it's such a stress-free environment, because I'm just sharing it with friends who want to follow me to see my food. There's no pressure there of like, this has to be the perfect one. I can share everything I make honestly. And so the demographic that we've really come across is like, I think the best way to say it is experimental cooks, where it's people who like trying, or chefs, people who like trying new restaurants and trying new recipes and sharing those recipes and really learning a bit earlier in the process, as opposed to a social media platform for food, exclusively food bloggers.
How often do they engage? How often are they on and active?
Like the members of the community?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think something awesome that we've been seeing is a lot of community engagement. It's been sort of a good thing and a bad thing at some points, because one thing we've heard from users of the app is that they love the community that they've created so much that they don't actually want to invite friends they know in real life onto it. So it's a bit of a double-edged sword where, so our community is incredibly active. I see people in the comment section all the time giving each other encouragement, telling each other that looks delicious, that looks amazing. I know I do it all the time. And also sharing recipes and learning from each other where it's, oh, how do you do this? Or do you have a great recipe for that? Also, same with restaurant recommendations. So especially for the people who do share the food that they're cooking, they often, like, the praise that you get from, as it is, random strangers on the internet that you share this community with is much more genuine, at least to some people, than it would feel like if their real life friends were on the app and felt forced to comment on it. Or like if I send a picture of the food I cooked to someone that I know, they essentially have to reply with, that looks great. But if I put it out there for anyone to see and anyone can interact with it, it's that much more exciting when I feel that validation from someone I don't even know. And so we've created a lot of these like cooking friends, basically, where people are bonding and connecting with people they don't even know.
You don't know my friends, they'd happily tell me that my food looked awful. So speak to, if you would, for just a moment about kind of, this changing approach and changing relationship with social media, kind of your, the Gen Z generation, and how they're approaching social media from that angle, as opposed to maybe how has been the case in the past, and, how you navigate some of that toxicity that you've mentioned early on, and how you're kind of looking to change that with the platform.
Yeah. I think a really interesting thing that's coming around in social media right now is this rise of vertical social media networks. So some of my favorites are Strava for running, which, if you don't know, it's a social media app for exercise, essentially, where you can record runs or events in the app and then post it to your friends there. Other apps are All Trails for hiking, which is social hiking recommendations. Or I even like to think of LinkedIn as a social media network, or a vertical social media network, where it's like social media for your professional life. Strava is social media for your athletic life. Recon Food is social media for your food life. And so this idea of verticalizing social media is really interesting to me, because I think, especially in my generation, Instagram has become a bit of a catch-all, where it's, first of all, where I connect with many, many of my friends. Almost everyone I know has it. But it's also become where I connect with like everyone I meet. I think especially young people who don't yet have LinkedIn, Instagram has sort of become that, where it's the way that I connect with everyone I meet. It's not just my closest friends, but at the same time, I use my Instagram professionally sometimes as well for announcements about Recon Food or sharing stuff I'm proud of there. And so the audience, I put audience in quotes, on my Instagram is such a mix of everyone, where I'm not even sure. I always feel awkward about posting because I'm not sure like how every single audience that I connect with on there is going to receive that. So I think that's something interesting that I think vertical social media networks do a really great job of addressing, because my friends on Strava are my running friends. It's my cross country team, my track team. I don't have to worry about that going out to the 1,000 people who follow me. It's just the people who want to connect with me in that way. On the other side of Instagram, the receiving content side, not the posting content side, it is that, like I mentioned earlier, highlight reel, where you get the best of everything, but you're comparing what you see, or what often happens is that you compare the best of what you see of everyone else to your entire life, which obviously isn't accurate and is not a great equal reflection, but that is what happens. So there's definitely that element. And also, for me, often social media, Instagram is very stressful. I hear a lot of news on there. I think whenever there's a big news story or a news cycle, it definitely shows up on my Instagram, at least. Same with Twitter, obviously, same thing can be said. So it's not like I open Instagram, click through everything, and I end up feeling happy. I end up feeling stressed or bad, or maybe neutral if it's a good day. And obviously that's not how social media, something that takes so much of our time, should be.
And so speak to, as a young person, is this your first experience with entrepreneurship? Is this your first venture, and kind of what's that experience been like so far?
Entrepreneurship is something that has been really present in my life throughout all of it. I grew up with my dad very much involved in the tech and startup world. My dad, who I co-founded this Recon Food with, has been involved. He was the CEO of Zillow for 10 years. He's now running a venture capital firm slash labs office called 75 and Sunny, which has started many companies since then. So I've grown up hearing all about entrepreneurship technology. I think I have to say that my first venture was technically my perfume shop that I started with my cousin at Christmas when we were about 7 and 8. We ended up we brought my dad into the whole thing. We got a website. I think her name is Dylan. And so we were like D and S, but it's spelled Dan's, and we didn't realize that. It was quite the experience, very fun. Sold perfume to so many family members. It spoiled after 3 days. So it was a short-lived entrepreneurial venture, but that was still a great time. I think this is my first venture that I've been really at the front of. And obviously it's been an idea that I've been pushing forward and working really hard for. So it's been a really amazing experience. But before this, entrepreneurship and venture is something that I've definitely wanted to get into. At my school, I'm the leader of the entrepreneurship organization, and we often host speakers and workshops and an incubator program to help students get their ideas off the ground. So it's definitely something I'm interested in approaching from all angles.
Where you want it to go? What does winning look like in 3 or 4 years down the road?
It's a really good question that I think is really hard to answer. There's a lot going on right now. I mean, not to get too far into it, but in the venture capital and entrepreneurship world, everything is coming to a bit of a halt, but we're definitely still pushing and going to keep going through that. I think what I'm most interested in on more of a micro level is just being able to provide this space for people. I think food is a giant, massive vertical that so many people are passionate about or just have an interest in. And I think it's really telling to me that so many people, including myself, spend so many hours on Instagram or TikTok or Snapchat just looking at food content. I mean, my Instagram Explore page, I'll scroll for probably an hour just looking at awesome recipes. So I'm really excited about being able to create a space for that. And I think there's a great proof of concept there with what food has been able to do on other apps. So I think just being able to create that space for people. I mean, obviously, I could shout out a number of how many users we want. I don't even think there's a cap on that. It's, to me, as much as possible, as many as possible. But just being able to be that space for people where I want that to be the place you go to scroll mindlessly, even if it's mindlessly, but it's actually relaxing instead of you're getting clogged with whatever else it may be.
The Arkansas Inc. podcast provides an in-depth look at the latest industry trends in Arkansas from decision makers, business leaders, and executives. The Arkansas Inc. podcast has focused on a range of business and economic development topics, including small business and entrepreneurship, international business, fintech, workforce development, and community development. Each episode, which are about 30 minutes long, features business leaders and subject matter experts in conversation with knowledgeable members of the AEDC team. Recent guests have included Governor Asa Hutchinson, UAMS Chancellor Dr. Cam Patterson, Conductor Managing Director Dr. Jeff Standridge, and representatives from companies including Amazon, Walmart, IBM, Ozark Integrated Circuits, and more. The goal of the podcast is to help provide more information about Arkansas and its strong business environment to help business owners and executives make the decision to move to or expand in Arkansas. The Arkansas Inc. podcast is available on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher, and other podcast apps. Just search for Arkansas Inc. To learn more or subscribe to Arkansas Inc. podcast, visit arkansasedc.com/podcast.
That's awesome. As someone who is Gen Z, has grown up around social media your whole life, and now you work in it, you created it, you see it every single day. How do you find that balance between your life and work and just regular social media consumption?
I think I definitely consume social media a lot. I think theoretically it's important to place limits on it, but I'll define something first, actually. To me, I see TikTok as much more of an entertainment platform than a social media platform. For me, it's much more about consuming content and just, it's like YouTube as opposed to like an Instagram. So with that, excluding that, I think the way that I use social media is much more often just to check in and tap through everything. Obviously, for me, I see on Instagram also school stuff, clubs that are meeting, all that type of thing, which I think is helpful and nice. And obviously, a social platform is great for that. I'd say I use Snapchat much more to communicate with friends on an individual level, or I love using my private story. I like to joke that it's like what my Twitter would be if I had more confidence in putting my stuff out to the entire internet. Here it goes to about 40 friends. So I think that's sort of my favorite social media platform, not including Recon Food, obviously, where it's just a way to communicate directly with friends and share stuff with my close friends. So I'd say that's probably a healthier social media option, in my opinion. But I know that a lot of people have a lot of different opinions. Overall, I think healthy social media use is more about knowing what makes you feel good and what makes you feel happy and not stressed, as opposed to having a universal boundary. I think it's really easy to roll your eyes or close your ears whenever everyone's like, get off social media if it makes you feel bad. Because at least for my generation, I don't think that's really a viable solution. It's such a powerful tool that I know that we can do so much with. It's just about optimizing it and making sure it's used in the best way possible.
Absolutely. I love how you made the distinction between the different types of apps, and that they're all, I mean, even the vertical social media, that Strava and All Trails, like they're all for different things. And I think that that's something that sometimes people struggle with social media, that they just lump it all together. And it's like, oh, it's social media, I'm just going to tune out and my brain's going to turn to mush and it's not good for anything. But I love the way that you put it. And I think that's the power of Gen Z coming into this workforce, is that they see social media each has its own purpose and its own value. And so utilizing that. And so I love the way that you put that. It's a really good point.
I totally agree.
Sophia, on the venture side of it, it sounds like you're in that, let's capture an audience, let's grow a loyal following. What are you thinking about monetization strategy and the financial side of it? How does that look?
I think I'm definitely more interested in monetizing in a way that supports the app and its purpose, as opposed to just ads. We've already said we don't sell data or anything like that. This is a healthy social media platform, and that would just defeat the purpose. Mm-hmm. So for monetization, I think the things that excite me most would enhance the app and really make it better. In an ideal world, that could look like booking reservations in the app. There's a great restaurant discovery feature in the map where you can find a restaurant near you or in a different city and see all of the posts that anyone has ever made from that, which is super fun to look back and get pictures of the restaurant. And it feels much more real because it's your friends as opposed to random strangers on the internet. So something like that, where ability to link to a booking site for restaurants in app, that'd be awesome. Same thing with ordering delivery, or monetization by linking or working with recipe sites to link directly to their recipes. Stuff like that really excites me. More of like brand work / partnerships of something that can enhance the app and the user experience, as opposed to just monetizing by putting ads in.
You know, one question, and that's interesting. I think edging into the adjacencies with things like OpenTable would be really interesting, but it's curated by people that you know around food that you like, based on sort of self-selection in, which is really kind of a cool idea. And are you thinking also about some subtle product placement? I mean, I could imagine where not overt advertising, but actually people using a particular type of sauce, particular type of ingredients or vegetables or whatever, and there being sort of a subtle, very subtle product placement about where they sourced it or where they got it. Have you been thinking about some of that as well?
Yeah, definitely. So we've done some what we like to call challenges in the app that were meant to be community building. One of my favorite ones that we did was for National Potato Month or Day, I believe. We worked with a chef, and it was his challenge. On the app, you had about 2 weeks to post a dish with potatoes with a certain hashtag. And then he selected his favorite dish, and the winner got a gift card and a reward. So I think something interesting about product placement could happen in that sense, where it's, be entered to win this raffle if you cook with this sauce, like you mentioned, and enter the challenge, and then you could win. And it'd be a great way for us to continue building community on the app. I love something like that. We've done a few more unofficial ones where it was a hashtag that was started, like your favorite kitchen tool, and everyone started posting that. The best chocolate chip cookie recipes, stuff like that is awesome to share in the app. Another one that we've sort of had come up is the idea of a HelloFresh or a meal kit integration somehow. We've had a lot of users posting HelloFresh meals. Maybe they're sponsored by HelloFresh. I couldn't tell you, but that would be awesome to incorporate. I think that'd be a really cool element of the app if you were able to see what other people's, or I mean, a really simple way to do this, obviously there's higher tech ways, but to have a hashtag for different HelloFresh meals and let people see all of their friends making that, something like that, that's already sort of started to rise naturally. But again, it would be part of the app as opposed to just scrolling and seeing something totally random.
Sophia, one of the questions we typically ask as we land the plane of our conversations is we ask entrepreneurs to look back in time and to reflect and look into their magic orb, or whatever you want to call it, and tell us what piece of advice they might give their younger self. But given that this is, your first real venture, maybe you're giving your 7-year-old self some advice post the perfume venture. So you can answer it in that way, but then also to add on to that, give us a piece of advice that, you would impart on other young entrepreneurs, or maybe young adults, high school students who are interested in entrepreneurship, but they're kind of afraid of taking that leap, they're afraid of the work that it might take and those sorts of things. What piece of advice would you give yourself and another entrepreneur?
My favorite piece of advice, which I would give someone else, and also I wish I had discovered sooner, was that in this day and age, you have the ability to just go do it. So if there's something that you're interested in, why not start? And that doesn't necessarily mean that you should quit your job and start a company immediately. In fact, please don't do that. I am a large proponent of being over-prepared and thinking stuff through very thoroughly. I'm an overthinker like that. But what I mean is you can start something at any level. If you're interested in something, explore it on the internet, and I'm sure you can find a series of webinars or a speaker or something that can inspire you even more. And then if you're ready to take that next step, there's so many ways you can go. I think a really specific element of this advice that I like to give is about cold emailing or cold DMing. Huge proponent of it, I think, because my reasoning is like, why not? If you want to learn about something, you can totally try to find the best person to teach you about it. And why not reach out to them? Because what's the downside going to be? This is something I've explored in topics that I'm interested in. Whenever I see a concert or a musical or anything like that, I'm very interested in production, and I'm a stage manager at my school. So I always cold DM whoever stage managing the production and just ask, hey, can you tell me about it? I once looked at all the production members on a music video, and I DM'd like 10 of them. And one of them responded, and we had a little conversation about his role on the piece and what he did. And it was super interesting. And I mean, obviously you don't get a lot of responses, but when you do, they're super valuable. I was once told a story from an entrepreneur that I met and hosted to speak that he guessed Mark Cuban's email and just like tried a bunch of different combinations until he emailed him and got a response. And I'm pretty sure he ended up investing in his company. So if that's not a success story, I don't know what is. I guess that's my favorite piece of advice, is just go for it, start doing something. There's no reason that you can't take the first step today and just try it.
We may know who that entrepreneur was. That could be one of two people. Was that Justin Delaney?
No.
Or Lance Stokes?
It wasn't him either. So maybe Mark Cuban needs to get
wow. Okay.
Well, it's funny is I did that for our startup week too. I just emailed a bunch of variations, and he sent a video to us.
That's really cool. Well, so that's clearly a good hack right there. If it's somebody important, you can figure, and you're really determined, you just keep grinding away. And the thing that I really liked about what you said, just to add one more point to that, is a lot of us are getting bombarded with people trying to sell us stuff. But when you're in a position of being an authority and people want your advice, my response rate on that is about 100%. People trying to sell me stuff, I may not respond. I'm probably going to, block them or whatever, if that's the very first thing they've done after they've connected on LinkedIn. But it's so smart to just reach out and ask advice, and to get someone's wisdom. And people are willing to provide it more often than not. So that's really fantastic advice that you're providing there. Great insight.
Really. And it works both ways 100%. Like when I don't feel qualified to give advice. I'm a very young person, but I once did an Instagram takeover for I forget which account it was, but I did a takeover for the day. It ended. And the next day, someone DM'd me from it and said, hey, I saw you on this yesterday. I really love your opinion on this question. And again, didn't feel qualified to give that advice, but we had a little conversation and it was super helpful. And I actually gave her the same advice that I gave just now, where it's just go out and try something, and why not? So I guess, I mean, I always love to respond to stuff like that. I love having conversations with people and answering questions. And I think that is really something where if you try to reach out to someone, I don't want to say you're likely to get a response, but you're not unlikely. Like, there's always a chance.
Sure. Where can our audience find out more about you and about Food Recon?
Recon Food is available for download in the iOS App Store, and we're coming to Android soon, I think in about a month. So look out for that as well. If you want to connect with us on Instagram, I believe it's Get Recon Food, and my Instagram is Sophia Rascoff if you want to connect there as well.
Thanks for coming on.
Thank you for having me.
Best of luck to you. It's a fantastic story, and I think our audience will agree you're going to be wildly successful. So keep it going.
Well, thank you.
Sure.
We'll have you on for an update in the future.
Absolutely. Have a good day.